Well, I do.
An awful vegan.
Okay, so burns is, it's pretty straightforward. Thank goodness, finally something that is pretty straightforward and not difficult to study. So I'm just going to give you some tips on things that make sure that you know. So the types of burns, and then how the emergency treatment would be. So like a chemical burn, if it's dry, you dust it off first, then you irrigate. If it's wet, you just irrigate, right, with water. Like the eye wash station in the chemistry lab, that kind of stuff. So the chem lab, chem burn, oh my God. Chemical burn, that just did not go well. Sorry. And then thermal burn, which could be hot or cold. So like frostbite, or you touch the hot pan that you know is hot, but you still touch it. And then, ow, ow, ow. And then you're supposed to rinse it under cool water. So pretty much when your skin is super hot and it's burning and it's breaking up the proteins and damaging the skin, it's still damaging. So as long as your hand is hot from a thermal burn, it's going to continue to be damaged, okay? If it's cold from like frostbite, as long as it's still cold, it's still burning, right? It's still causing damage. So you need to, if it's hot, you need to cool it. If it's cold, you need to warm it, that kind of thing. And electrical burn has an entrance and an exit wound. And anywhere in between those 2 points can be damage. So if someone gets electrocuted, Grandpa's putting up Christmas lights that are 100 years old on the outside of the house, but he's doing it for the grandkids, right? And he gets zapped, and he's got a really, really bad electrical burn because his house is from the 40s or whatever, right? You can have a story. Then anything along the burn track. So if it went through his heart, if it went through his kidneys, his bladder, whatever it went through, that could be damaged, but you're not necessarily going to see that on the outside. Let's say while Grandpa's putting up the lights and gets electrocuted, now falls off the ladder. Circumstance of the burn is also very important, because what else now is Grandpa going to maybe have? A head injury. Real easy to focus on just the burn, and it's a good story. Everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, where's the grandpa that got electrocuted? Because that doesn't happen very often. But you can't forget that he fell and hit his head. Or someone was in like a house fire, and they were in an enclosed space, like a bathroom or something. What kind of problem do you think they're gonna have? Respiratory. And carbon monoxide, respiratory. I had a patient that was on a ventilator, and they told me he ran into the burning building to get his kids out. His kids were fine. He looked fine. I was like, why is this patient even in the ICU? It was one of those. And when you suctioned the ET tube, it was all black. It was like I was suctioning charcoal out of his lungs. That's why he was in the ICU. Because he wasn't covering his mouth, right? He just ran in. And he did have singed nose hairs. So these are some key things when you're looking at respiratory. It might not say they're coughing up black stuff, because that would be really obvious. It could say they have singed nose hairs, that kind of thing, okay? That's the main stuff, unless I think of something else. All right, and then we have first degree, second degree, third degree. So, and I think that's all in your packet. First degree is a sunburn, second degree is blisters, third degree is open and can go all the way down to the muscle, the bone, everything. Really, really bad. You do not have nerve endings down there, so if you have a third degree burn, it will not hurt on the inside of the burn. It'll hurt on the edges, but not on the inside, because you burned all the nerve endings, okay? Infection is a huge problem. This would be like, I'm going to put you on neutropenic and try to, limit your exposure to anyone. There's also some fluid shifts that occur, and that is also in your packet. So there's the first 24 hours, and then the second 24 hours. Okay, so if you think about a blood vessel, and you've got cells inside, right? And now you burn. Of course, we're like microscopic here. You damage, right, the vessel with fire or whatever, and now it starts to leak out into the tissue, right? So your fluid is going to shift out of your cells. And I think the mnemonic is arc, like electricity arcs, right? It's accumulation. I'm going to see if I can remember what this is, and I'm not going to be able to spell accumulation now. Accumulation of fluid outside of the vessels. So if it's outside the vessels, what's inside the vessels? Less fluid, right? So what's going to happen to the blood pressure and the vital signs? Okay. So the fluid accumulates here, so now you're going to have a decreased blood pressure, decreased volume. Number one treatment for burns, which is why patients need to go to a burn center, is we under-resuscitate with fluid. These people need more fluid than you've ever given anybody in your whole life, okay? And there's an equation for that. We'll do that in just a second. So we need to replace volume is one of the most important things. So infection and volume, okay, are the big ones. And then the R is, this one's convalescence. What's the R? Accumulation. It goes back. This is like the first 24, and this is the second 24. It's not really important. This one, it goes back. The fluids then move back into the cell, and you kind of, you're like, it's not rebalance. There's some medical word. Yeah, I don't know. But the fluid all goes, it all goes back into the vessels where it belongs. So the first 24 hours is key in most things. All the fluid leaks out of these damaged vessels, so your blood isn't where it needs to be. And then in the next 24 hours, it should all start going back into the vessels as the vessels kind of, start to heal a little bit. Convalescence is like grafting. If it's third-degree burn, you have to have a skin graft. Psychosocial issues at that point, depending upon what's burned, what it looks like.
5033.
The C is compartment syndrome.
No, not for ARC.
It says ARC on the little note. It says accumulation, and the next thing in there is compartment syndrome.
No, it's going to be down a little bit more. That's all part of the accumulation. It's like restitution or something.
Oh, it's a rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation phase? Scarring?
Yeah,
psychosocial
rehab.
aspects?
Yeah, rehab.
That's where it is. The C. No,
Rehab,
no, it's the
rebalance,
C,
I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever you want to say with an R.
Intermediate phase, Jesus. Whatever.
Whatever.
There's
The
an
fluid
equation.
goes out, and then the fluid, it's like hokey pokey. Your fluid goes out, and then the fluid goes in, and you turn around. No.
You burn yourself again.
And you get surgery. Okay, so that's the main thing. The fluid shifts out, and the electrolytes are going to follow. So you're going to have a potassium issue, right? So when you're studying, just make sure you know first 24, second 24, what am I doing for each, right? And then as far as replacing the fluid, so you've got to figure out the total body surface area, which is the rule of nines. You have to know the rule of nines. Before the test, you have to be able to draw a stick figure and write the numbers of each body area. That's the only way you can figure out fluid resuscitation. That could be like 4 questions. So you got to know the numbers, okay? So total body surface area burned And the equation, you're gonna take total body surface area times 4, is it 4 mLs?
2, 4.
We're gonna use
is
4,
fine, yeah.
we're gonna use 4, times 4 mLs, times the weight, I believe. That amount is the total fluid volume in 24 hours, okay? So total body surface area times 4 mLs times the kilograms of the patient. So don't forget how to change pounds to kilograms, right? That is going to tell you this is how much fluid I need to give in 24 hours. This could be like 11 liters or something, okay? You're going to cut this in half. You're going to give half over the first 8 hours and the other half in the next 16. Okay, so if you get 10 liters in your overall, you're going to give 5 liters in the first 8 hours and the other 5 liters over the next 16 hours. Okay? So it could be a lot of volume. You may have to use 2 pumps, you know? Put them both at 500 liter an hour. I mean, it's a lot. If it's not very much, then recheck your math. Okay, it should be a lot of fluid. So for the rule of 9s, don't cut anything more than half. So things like, so if you have the torso, there's the belly button, there's the heart, right? Okay, perineum only gets 1, no matter what you think. That was supposed to be funny. That's okay.
She's trying out here.
Yeah, I'm tired.
I'm sorry.
So the head is 9, so if it said the face was burned, that would be 4.5. If it said both eyes were burned, that's still 4.5. This is to get so the doctor can go, well, I know that everything's divided into 9s, the whole front half of the body is burned, it's this percentage, times 4. How much do they weigh? Hang this much fluid. That's why. It's a quick, and obviously the more surface area. You could have a person that's sunburned on their whole body and has a 1st-degree burn everywhere, and a patient that just has a burn on their arm, but it's 3rd degree and their bones are hanging out. The one that has the sunburn everywhere, has a more surface area, they're in more trouble because they're going to have evaporation. Your skin, it manages your temperature, it holds the fluid in, it prevents infection. Our skin does a lot that we don't think about until you don't have any, right? Okay, and then the arms are 9. So if it was the anterior arm, posterior arm, then that would be half of that. But we only cut it in half. Don't do weird things like, well, it's just the back of the hand. That's the back of the arm. We're just going to count it as the whole thing. If it says the chest, it's the whole front. So this is 18. So if it said the chest, if it said the torso, if it said the abdomen, that's all 18. Okay? The back is going to be 18. The legs are 18 also, right? The legs 18?
Each leg is 18.
Yeah, I think each
Because
leg's
the upper
18.
thigh and back.
Right. Okay, that's all you get. Don't get fancy. Just add up what you got.
So you said if it's like the front part of the arm, it would be.
It would
half of
be,
9.
yeah, it would be
Oh, okay.
4.5.
And then if it's like just the front part of the leg, it would be half of 18.
Right, so if it just said the thigh, it would be 9.
Okay.
Because you're only cutting stuff in half. We're not quarters and whatever. It's got to be something that everyone can do. Pretty much everybody can do half. Right?
If it says for chest, it's 9.
If it says chest, if it said, no, it's 18.
18.
This is 18, this is 18.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because the whole middle is 36 altogether. So you'll be given a patient and it'll say that you're caring for a patient who was in a house fire or whatever and burned their head and their right arm, their right leg, and their abdomen and their perineum. And they weigh 140 pounds. How much fluid are you gonna give per hour the first 8 hours? Right? So let's add them up.
Dr. Manzurian.
So the head,
4.
the arm,
Manzurian, 5, 2,
Perineum.
4.
and the leg, right? Is that what I said? And the abdomen. That's what I'm thinking.
Uh-huh.
I don't know,
55.
57, 55,
55.
55% of their body burned.
54 is 9 times 6.
So I'm gonna say 55%, I'm gonna plug it in here, 55% times 4 mLs times the 140 kilos, or 140 pounds changed to kilos is,
60 something, right?
I don't know, somebody's gotta, huh? 140 pounds. Just 140 pounds, that's all I wanna know.
63.66.
Thank you, 63.6. Okay, what is that multiplied?
Quick maths.
And we're calculating.
Sorry, I forgot I was calculating.
I can't calculate because I got, you know.
63.6. 13,992.
Okay, so we're gonna give 13,992 in 24 hours. We're gonna cut it in half, which is,
One second, sorry, my phone switched off, so. 199.
6,996.
okay. So we're gonna give 6,996 in the first 8 hours. We're gonna divide that by 8 because we wanna know how much per hour.
874.5 per hour.
874.5 mLs an hour is your answer. And then you're gonna go back and read the question. Okay, I got the right body parts. I'm answering the right question. You could ask this question in 10,000 different ways. Okay? And then the compartment syndrome thing is, if you have an extremity burn, compartment syndrome is gonna be one of your biggest priorities.
So you're gonna fasciotomy and burn?
Yes,
Did they
Yes.
sedate people for that, at least?
yes.
Okay.
And they also use like hyperbarics and stuff too.
We have ones at Palmdale. You'd have to go see them. They look like little tubes.
It's pretty cool.
Spaceships.
Okay, do we understand, so real quick, you figure out the percentage burned, you add it up, that gives you your TBSA. You take your total body surface area times 4 times your kilograms, and your answer is the first 8 hours, half in the first 8 hours, the other half in the next 16 hours, and there you go. That's a lot, right?
At least it's straightforward.
It's straightforward. What kind of fluid are we giving?
LR.
LR or normal saline, but isotonic. Isotonic fluids. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Won't miss the burn question.